Hi Homeworthy, I'm Nadine Finnegan and this is Oscar. Welcome to our barn in the Cotswolds.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Nadine Finnegan. I'm an interior designer. I have a studio called Decurate and we are in our barn in the Cotswolds. And I guess I've always had a personal dream of living in the Cotswolds, and it's a dream that my husband has come along with. We accidentally found ourselves out in the Cotswolds during the pandemic. We had a lovely weekend cottage in a little village close to Burford, which kind of became our sanctuary in that time. We were previously living in London, and that's where my husband and I met. And I guess with life changing and circumstances, we decided to make a complete lifestyle shift. And after coming out of the back end pandemic hangover, we decided to move to the Cotswolds and make it our permanent home. So we first saw the barn during the summer, July 2023 specifically. Unfortunately, at the time, we lost out to another set of buyers, which left us feeling a little bit heartbroken. But I guess, as my mother always says, what's meant for you won't pass you by. And 5 months later, we got the call from the realtor asking us whether we were still interested in the property, and we obviously jumped at the chance, and the rest is history. We decided that a barn was the layout we really wanted. In London, my husband and I had been living in a really beautiful riverside apartment, which was very light-filled and really very much about lateral living. And so in the country, our sort of collective dream was to find a property where we had that feeling of space and lateral living being, kind of high on the list of priorities. And for me, I would love to live in a cottage for like the rest of my days, but my husband's very tall and likes space, so this is kind of the compromise really. But we both love barns, and we love the charm and the history. And as much as I guess the designer in me wanted to, buy a piece of land and develop a barn from scratch, my husband sort of reined me in on that. And so for us, it was a case of let's find a barn that isn't necessarily turnkey, but is needing a little bit of TLC and a place that's already built and that we could put our touch to. So here we are in our formal entrance hallway. This space, we really wanted to feel like it gave you a bit of an immediate hug when you walked into the house. Our guests will flow through the front or through the back door, but when they do come through this way, we kind of like want it to feel instantly like they're home, and everyone feels super chill. And we went for a colour that we felt really like enveloped the space and added a real sense of warmth. This is a fantastic shade of blue from Edward Bulmer, which is called Tingray. And it's like a sort of Air Force blue. It's got a bit of grey in it, but I love the tone. And Edward Bulmer, I think, is just a genius when it comes to colour palette. So we really felt that by bringing in that tongue and groove, that we were, creating again a layer of, rustic and charm and bringing, I guess, something that, perhaps could have been here, a long time ago, sort of giving that feeling really of it feeling quite timeless and something that not necessarily is a new piece. So we wanted it to feel like it had kind of always been here. Moving on to some of the art that we have chosen for this particular space. My husband and I didn't want this room to feel like it was overly hung with pieces, because obviously the tongue and groove is kind of what does the talking. But we've got a really special piece here, which was actually a wedding gift from the artist, who we are very, very dear friends of ours. The artist is, he's Colombian, Ariel Chavara Avila, and he's super, super talented. He has actually exhibited globally and he's won awards, but he's a dear friend, as I said, and this piece is just so incredible. I'm a huge fan of abstract, and it's kind of my absolute kind of genre, my go-to. So we were obviously very thrilled when we got this, and I framed it in just a really lovely, simple bamboo frame, which I think just really kind of allows the picture really to do all the talking. You'll notice in most of the rooms that I take you through that we have a lot of like sea and boat, and the reason being is my husband is a very keen sailor, so I kind of like that always to be a little bit of a nod to, you know, things that feel really close to our hearts. And here we've got a really beautiful watercolor which I love, and I think it's really soft, and it kind of feels like a really nice juxtaposition between the abstract piece and that piece. A piece that I brought from my sort of single life, because of course this is a home that, you know, really actually my husband and I have kind of, you know, merged our things together. Not everything came with us, but the pieces that did are the pieces that we absolutely love. And this is a gorgeous antique French light, which actually was a pair, but sadly the other one got damaged. So I feel like it works really nicely here, and it's just beautiful cut glass, gorgeous detail. And then I just had a fermoir fabric lampshade made. I work really closely with this amazing lampshade maker. She's incredible. She's an absolute dream, and she created this, which I think is really, really pretty, and it just feels like it kind of complements the kiln, which again, you know, we've got killens throughout the house. They're just so brilliant. They're a really inexpensive way of kind of creating, you know, bringing in pattern and creating, you know, texture and warmth. And I think they are so great, especially if you have dogs and lots of tread, and you know, you don't need to be too precious about stepping on them with, you know, shoes. This is a lovely antique table from China, from a fantastic local antique dealer who always just has the best eye, and he's a real resource for me. And his shop is in Shipston on Stour, so it's very local and always very tempting to buy pieces. And a little treasured piece here from John Darien from my big sister, who bought this for me one Christmas, and I love it. Again, I love seashells. My husband loves sea and boats, so, you know, it's a great motif. This bench is really special to us. This was salvaged in Ireland actually by my late mother-in-law, Angus's mother, and it's such a beautiful piece. It's just, I love the shape of it. I love the Gothic detail, the colour of it. So many benches that you sometimes see from churches are quite dark wood, whereas I just think this is kind of that nice like light oak. But it's just got amazing patina, and yeah, we just love it so much, and it just feels like it was meant to be in this spot and live in this spot. So we're really, really pleased with this. It feels like it's kind of finally found its home. And then on the cushion, we've just used an Ian Mankin stripe there. I love stripes. I'm obsessed with stripes. I'd probably have a stripy house if I could. And then we've got a newer piece here, just a Nakuku antique brass lamp and a barn mirror, which I just thought was kind of a cute way of just giving a little nod to being in a barn. You know, that's kind of gives you that sort of impression that it's like a barn window. So it was just to bring in a little element of that. And this is a piece I've had for a long, long time. I think probably owned it for about 15 years. It's a lovely, again, it's a vintage French antique coat hanger, and I think the colours are just gorgeous, and it's kind of really worn, and it just really works in this space. So of course every hallway needs a place to put your umbrellas, a place to put your coats, a place to put dog leads, and this particular umbrella stand is an antique piece, and actually made not that far away. I think it's a mid-century piece, and it was made in Birmingham. I love it because of the sort of utilitarian aspect to it, but I love the fact that they've used the sort of faux bamboo, which I'm obsessed with, and I always have been. So anything with bamboo really always speaks to me. And through here we have our guest cloakroom, which is very small but perfectly formed. I've really used this space just to hang some really sweet art. we've got all of our past doggies in heaven on the wall. So it's a little bit of a homage to them. And then we've got some other artworks around. I'm obsessed with this mirror. I love lattice detail. And this is a particular piece that I just would like to recreate one day, actually, because I think it makes such a fine mirror. It was a frame originally, and I just had it sort of redone to include some mirror. We obviously continued the tongue and groove into here, but didn't want to do it in a sort of sense where we were going full scale. So it was more sort of the sort of half room effect. But what I did want to add is a little bit of a pop of tile, and these are so sweet, and I was desperate to use them. And these are from Belinium, and they're hand painted in Italy. And I just love the leaf detail, and it's almost like a trellis effect. I think it's so clever. And what Sarah and her team create are just brilliant. And now I'm going to take you through to our kitchen dining space. So this space is very much the nucleus of the house, and I love that it is very much the room that you find centrally located, so you can access all parts of the home from here. I think for us it was really important that this space felt less kitcheny and more like a lifestyle place. Obviously we love to cook, we love to host, we love to entertain, but I guess the challenge of having open plan is to almost compartmentalize the zones. We inherited this kitchen actually, so what we did here was I guess we took a more minimal approach to the tweaks, but what was really important is to get the color right. So we worked with a fantastic company who actually resprayed all of the units into this really fantastic color. This is Little Green's sage green, which is just a go-to. I use it on quite a lot of client projects. I love it. I think it really sort of exudes country. And I think it's a really timeless color as well. And I know green kitchens obviously are kind of having a bit of a moment, but for me, they're very country classic. And feels like it's kind of a good future-proof color. As I said, the kitchen was something that we inherited. It was, beautifully made German custom creation. It would have just been totally criminal to rip it out and remove it. And it was, I feel really happy that we were able to give it a new lease of life. And just make some, very small differences and tweaks. So we installed this hob, for example, and changed the countertop, and then obviously certain hardware changes. So again, I think there's a lot you can do with what you have, and we shouldn't be so quick to always kind of rip things out. We do use this space a lot with lots of family visiting and hosting Christmas every other year is kind of our thing. And believe it or not, we actually have had 14 people around this table with a slight extension. But usually I'd say we're kind of entertaining 6 to 8. So it's kind of much more manageable, really. In terms of like the details that we have here, I mean, I love to include art, and these are just some smaller pieces that I just think really, just pop. You'll notice like a theme through the house is we've just gone for one paint color, which is we've used on a continuum, apart from the formal entrance where we've used the blue. We've used a color from Farrow & Ball called Dimity, which I think is just such an amazing kind of blank canvas color. I knew that we were going to hang a lot of art, and so for me it's just the perfect backdrop to that. So just going back to some of the pieces we have, a lot of the artists are unknown, but I just love like the fun and frivolity of this piece here, which is, I believe a French artist painted that. And this is a Cornish artist, and actually that piece is as well, and that piece. And so, yeah, it's just kind of mixing things together. I always say I'm not an art snob. I think if you love something, buy it. You can reframe it. I always say make friends with your framer, because they will become a great resource. I know I keep mine very busy. And then, as you can see, I love ceramics. So this is a very old piece that I acquired in my sort of 20s when I started to really discover Majolica. And I think it's really cute. I love Delft, so these are from that region, and I think they're really quite beautiful. This is a piece that we brought back from Austria, actually, because we have a place there in Kitzbühel, and anything wicker really always speaks to me. But I just love the fact it's an urn, and I think it's really quite special. This is a piece another ceramic piece that I absolutely love, and it just kind of reminds me of Italy. This is a piece that my parents-in-law gifted to us, and we love that. And then obviously we've got some cookbooks, and this is obviously very helpful when I try to cook. Over here, some more ceramics, another piece that we brought back from Austria. And we have just like various, again, a little nod to my husband's sailing there with a little anchor, which is a cute little bottle opener. And then lots of like little vintage pieces. These came from a French flea market, which I think are really quite cute. So I think it's just always really nice to mix things that just add a little bit more character. And then we've got some great plates, which we brought back from our mini moon to Portugal, which I think look really pretty there. And this lampshade is quite old now, but it's from Samarkand Design. And they create the most amazing lampshades using old saris. And I think it's really quite pretty. It's quite faded now, but I kind of think it adds to the charm. And again, a little bit of a nod to bamboo here with the lamp base. And this is also actually another Samarkand Design lampshade here, which I think is really quite chic. And then just a little bit more of the sort of, pieces that we like to surround ourselves with. This actually came back from us from a trip to Jamaica recently, which I think is just so fun. He's quite fun that it's double-sided as well, which often, the devil is always in the detail, isn't it? It's often not the case. And this guy, we met his father actually, and he had carved it by hand, and I love that. I think it's lovely to know the provenance of the pieces that you buy. You don't always, but when you do, I think it feels extra special. So we love him. In fact, I think we need to name him. These pieces are, again, other ceramics, gifts. My big sister kind of always knows what I like. She always buys me great ceramics, so she's actually the person that brought these two lovely items into my life. This came from Marrakesh, from Shabby Chic. I love Marrakesh. I think it's one of those places where, it's just a voyage of discovery. It's sensorial overload, so a lot of inspiration is definitely to be found there. And the artisans, I think, are just second to none. So this is a piece from there. This travelled back from Paxos with us, actually. I always try to leave a bit of extra space for these treasures. And this piece came from Corfu Old Town. So yeah, the ceramics, I feel like, tell their own story. They've all acquired their own sort of air miles, really. And then to our dining table, which is very informal, and I think it's really nice that we can add extra seating. And as I said, we've often extended it and kind of hidden everything with tablecloths. But I love the fact that it's just very chill when people come, and we've got the kids or the adults, and everyone can just kind of bundle up together around the table. And this piece is actually just from a flea market, but I just absolutely love it. I think it's Italian, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So I really didn't want to kind of create that sort of cliche country look, but I do love those nods, and for me it's like a great check, a great gingham. So this is a really fantastic blue check that Ian Mankin designed, and I think it's fantastic with a little pop of red. I think it just looks really cute. And actually for the blind, I love to sometimes find old rolls of discontinued or fabrics that are just not being made. And this is a Colfax and Fowler gingham, which I found a roll actually really luckily on eBay, which was like winning the lottery. And then I had it made up. So you'll see it's kind of it's a smaller scale check to the bench check, but I think it works really nicely together. So I think for us, when you think about a barn, you think about all of those incredible details that will be there. The beams really are kind of a big part of that for us. The beams in this room, I think, are just really, really so stunning. And, you know, we love the fact that it's kind of in a very natural oak. So many beams sometimes that you sort of see in properties are painted, and for us it's we were just so happy to see them really kind of come to life here in their sort of more natural sense. You'll see details across the windows as well, kind of throughout the house, really where they've kind of used pieces of, I guess, the original beams, but definitely for us, it's nice that we have the beams in sort of running through the ground floor. Upstairs is kind of really where the beams kind of do talking in much more of a sort of grand way. But we do love the fact that they do bring so much charm and so much warmth to the ground floor space. This guy, there's a story attached to him. So my husband and I got married in a really beautiful place in the Cotswolds called Thyme, and Thyme and the Thyme estate is kind of surrounded by these incredible sheep, and actually within the estate, it's the most magnificent, chic and magical hotel with awesome interiors. Really, really a place that I always recommend people to visit when they come to the Cotswolds, because the owners just have the most exquisite taste. And actually in the bar area, they have these amazing sheep chairs. So we were very much kind of inspired by that. But actually, my husband and I have a place in Austria, and this actually came from Austria. So they're actually made locally to us in a place called Kitzbühel. And we just love him. And he's got the little bell. And he actually came back with us on a road trip where Oscar was in one seat and he was in another. So he really, really has, again, done his kind of fair share of traveling. But I feel like he's found his home here in the Cotswolds, and yeah, we love him. He's kind of very much a little bit of a security when you're coming in and going into the lounge. I'm obsessed with French antiques, and I really just fell for this table. I love the patina. I just love the history, and you know, someone might say rusty table, I say charm, and the detail is just so pretty. And I think I don't really kind of subscribe to kind of the uber feminine, you know, look, but I love those elements that really do soften it. So I think it's a really beautiful piece, and I'm really happy with its corner that we found for it. I think, you know, with any home, you're always trying to max every square inch, and this felt really quite right for the sort of, you know, extension to the kitchen area. We inherited an element of it, but actually our builder kind of very cleverly tweaked it according to our taste, so that we could, you know, display books, and that's a little nook for the dogs. And then it's just a natural place really to have a little bar section set up, which is always quite nice, and kind of being a separate zone to the main kitchen. But I also love the fact that we went for a paint colour that feels a little bit unexpected. It feels like it really works nicely with the terracotta tiles that we have in the room. And I love a pop of red. So growing up, I spent a lot of time in France with my parents. And again, you know, I've spoken to my love of abstract. I just love Picasso. And these pieces are so beautiful. And these actually... this is a lithograph signed, which is of a place that I spent a lot of time visiting, and it's called Antibes. And I love the colours. I think it's really cute, and I think it just adds a little bit of fun to that specific spot, and we've got just a pair of them there, and I think they just look really nice in that spot. So when we first arrived, I think we decided to give ourselves 2 to 3 months just to kind of get to find our feet and just kind of understand the lay of the land. I think you have to really start to understand the home before you can start any kind of, you know, musing over work. For us, it was a case of making, rather than kind of full refurbishment, it was a case of us making some tweaks and some light renovations. Some more intense renovations obviously did take place as we sort of started to discover things. But I think for us, it was really important that we were retaining the original charm of the barn, but also bringing some new elements into it, just to kind of almost give it a feeling of kind of more rustico elements. So for example, we've installed tongue and groove into our formal hallway, which we feel really adds like a layer of depth and just kind of a coziness, really. And that space was previously wallpapered. So it was just kind of being really smart with our choices. The house had been really well loved and lived in by the previous owners, and it was clearly a really happy place. So we were really, really lucky to be able to take it on and become the custodians. So I think for us, this room, the starting point was the sofa and the table. My husband and I were looking at kind of, you know, layouts and the type of vibe we wanted. This was kind of, for us, the first room that we started to scheme. And we looked at some tables at Burford Antiques, which were Indian coffee tables, and he loved that. So I knew that we were kind of on the right track. So this piece actually came from Indigo Antiques, and they are an incredible resource for Asian and Indian antiquities based in Wiltshire. And this table arrived, and I knew kind of scale-wise it worked. And then from there we kind of went to sofa choices. This sofa came from Soho Home. We wanted to make sure that we had a sofa that just is super comfortable. You can put your feet up on, you know, the dogs can jump up on, the children visiting. So, you know, we're not precious at all. So this is very much kind of the place where you can relax and lounge. And this one is adorned with a couple of different cushion choices. So this is Sanderson fabric, and this one is also Sanderson, but it's a collaboration they did with Salvas and Graham. And this is a Ian Mankin ticking stripe, which I think is fantastic. And I've used a lot of Ian Mankin fabrics throughout the house. The coffee table, I love to kind of, you know, add trinkets to, sometimes to my husband's annoyance, but I do think that, you know, kind of coffee table curation is something that I just love to do, and I think most people would agree. So lots of crystals, candles, matches, plants, books, things that you just want to surround yourself with, really. This is kind of a ever evolving and moving moment, I'd say. We've got a separate armchair as well, which actually was a piece that my husband had acquired many years ago. So we wanted to make sure that we used that. And I like the fact that we've got, again, that juxtaposition of the kind of, you know, more sort of masculine leather club chair with some of the softer pieces. And this is again, a real kind of nod to my bamboo love. This is an antique piano stool that's been reupholstered a few times. And actually my upholsterer told me last time it couldn't be done again because it is now quite fragile. So this, I feel, is probably its last fabric moment. But I couldn't resist the Colfax and Fowler squiggle, which I absolutely love. So I feel like that really works nicely in that spot. Over here we have beautiful Suzanne, which we've hung. some people choose to stretch them on canvases. I think they look, beautiful on rails. And this is, I just love the colours, the pomegranates. I think it's just exquisite. And it just really, really pops on the wall. And of course, we've kind of got a various array of books and ceramics. And this piece actually, again, we always like to buy when we're traveling. This piece came from Portugal, which is a bit of a nod to the sea with a fish. Some of the other pieces actually we inherited from my parents-in-law, the ceramic fruits, which I just think are divine. And the starfish came back from Jamaica with us recently, which are lovely, and just really, again, add a little bit of a holiday reminder to our sort of setup. My parents actually bought this piece when we lived in the south of France, and so I feel like it's a real kind of treasured possession. And I love how it just sits there. Feels like it's kind of the centerpiece of that particular setup. These are just very inexpensive lampshades from Pookie. Again, a bit of a nod to my wicker obsession. And just that feels like it's kind of constantly evolving, swapping books in and out, but kind of works as a really nice vignette. Another real treasured possession of mine is this malachite elephant, which came from Africa. My father used to do a lot of business in Zaire specifically in the 80s, and that piece is very heavy. It's travelled along to various parts of the world with us, but it's now living in the Cotswolds. And actually, I love elephants, and you'll see a few other little elephant moments throughout the barn. Actually, this is kind of very much our sort of family table of portraits, and again, I think this space, when we thought about it, how did we want to plan it out? Were we going to perhaps have two sofas? Actually, what I think and where we've landed in the kind of one sofa kind of sectional arrangement feels like we've kind of got another zone here. And then I quite like the fact you can travel around the back of the sofa with our lamps and our table. And we've got a little bookcase here, which is again an antique bamboo piece that I acquired around 2012. One of the pieces weren't very popular, and it's a really, really fine example of one of those pieces from the era. So I'm so happy to still have that in my life, and I think it looks great in this corner. This is a really special piece. This is a Miro lithograph. Juan Miro is one of my favourite artists. I think my kind of love affair with Juan Miro began at the age of 14 when I was studying art at school, and my husband actually brought that for me for my birthday a couple of years ago on a weekend trip to Amsterdam. So that also came home with us. This piece actually, my late mother-in-law was an artist, Nadine Finnegan, and she painted that in her later years, and I just love it. I love the, again, abstract really speaks to me, and I just love the fact that you can make of it what you wish, and so I often sit there staring at it, kind of coming up with new iterations of what I think it represents. But I just love that. It's really, really, really special to us. And another piece of Wendy's actually we've got over here, which is one of my husband's favourites and also mine. So that again kind of hangs pride of place, and I think just really looks divine actually on that wall. And this is a London artist, Nadine Finnegan, which we've got quite a few of her pieces around the house. She paints a lot of nature, again in that sort of abstract way that I love. This curtain we used a Jane Churchill fabric with a lovely trim from Colfax and Fowler, and I just I like how the trim just kind of adds that element of interest to it, and it also feels like it works really nicely with our kilim rug, which, obviously you've got the blues and the yellows, and the motif feels like it kind of is very complementary. This chair is a very old antique from France. I think what really spoke to me is the brass inlay pieces, the marquetry here, and this has been reupholstered in a manuel canvas fabric, actually, which I think looks like coral. So again, that kind of really speaks to me. This table is from the Kiku, and we've got some books and a little malachite chessboard, which is also from Africa as well, another piece that my father had brought back. This piece is 70s brutalist stool, which kind of uses the side table, which I think is always just very handy to have. But I just love the carved legs and the rope detail. Again, reminds me a little bit of a kind of, it's got a bit of nautical nod. These lampshades came from La Corallina in Florence. And again, I love iCat or ECAT, and I think they're really beautiful. They're printed onto paper, but I think they just look really quite impactful there, and they kind of pop when you walk into the room. So we've got another piece from Ariel Chavaro Avila, and we've had that one framed there, and I think it's just, it just has a lovely sense of movement to it, and we've just put that together with two other abstract pieces. This one is actually of mountains, which I adore, and this is an unknown artist, but I believe it's French origin. For me, when I'm thinking about a scheme, I don't personally subscribe to your art having to match your furniture or your fabric choices. That's not how I decorate. But I think a lot happens fairly accidentally at times. I always encourage people to mix their fabric prints. So if you're going for a stripe, you can soften it with something maybe more floral. I think what's really, really lovely is to kind of start with that piece. And for us, it was the table. And as you can see with this table, you've got green, you've got blue, you've got taupe, you've got quite a few colors, even some yellow. And so that was kind of the starting point for where we would go with the scheme in this room, and really just kind of eking out the colors. But I think, with a lot of room design, it's sometimes trying and then try again, and don't be afraid to move things around. Or, my husband often says, like, when will it ever be finished? And I say to him, never, because actually a home is constantly evolving, and we're constantly evolving. So why would it stand still? So my previous career was in public relations, and I guess I've always had an interest in art and in history. I read history at university. My parents also love to redecorate our homes, and were really, really fortunate that we lived in various parts of the world. And so I've kind of drawn from all of that, I guess, formative stage of my life. And I think I probably had a little bit of a sort of eureka moment when I was lucky enough to visit the home of the notable designer Stephen Gambral, his Hamptons home, and I realised that this could be the life that I could lead in the way of kind of creating things for clients. And I don't think I'd ever perhaps recognised that could have been a career path for me, I guess 15 years previously when I started out, in kind of thinking about where I wanted to go and which direction. So I'm a kind of great believer in life that you should always be a beginner at something. So when I came back from that trip, I decided to enroll, and I studied interior design for a year. And I got my diploma, and the rest is history. So I set up my studio, Decurate Interiors, in 2018, and it really very much began on a much smaller scale of just, helping friends and family members out with perhaps rooms in their homes. And my big moment came in 2020 when I was asked to work on the full refurbishment and decoration of a very sizable home in the Cotswolds, and so that was a real turning point for me in my career, and I'll always be grateful for that opportunity. So moving from the kitchen into the garden studio room, this is now my office space. When we first arrived at the property, it was a very utilitarian boot room, and it was a space that felt almost a little bit wasted, just because just has the most glorious vantage over the garden, and it's kind of the perfect room, really. It's kind of warm and cozy in the winter, it stays cool in the summer, so it's a great place to work, and it's a place where Oscar likes to hang out as well, when I'm doing calls or thinking about mood boards or whatever I happen to be doing. So I decided for this space to go for a circular table situation as opposed to kind of a traditional desk, just because it was, I think I really sort of wanted to enjoy the view, and the natural place to put a desk would have been to face the wall originally. And I just thought, actually, by putting a circular table in, it actually feels less officey, and a little bit more of an extension of the house. Also, I guess 80% of the room is my office, and then 20% is kind of the flow from, as it is a backdoor flow. So it was just kind of felt like a really smart way to use the space. And obviously, like anyone's desk is always full of your treasures and things that, make you really happy. And I've got lots of things here that I really treasure and love. And actually, my mother bought me this paperweight, which is the mountains in Tyrol, which again is a bit of a nod to Austria, and a really lovely piece, which I love seeing every day. My brother always says my spirit animal is Sophia from the Golden Girls, and I'm obsessed with the Golden Girls, so she always sits with me. And I think we all need to be a bit more Sophia, frankly, in life. I love crystals, and you'll see around the house I collect crystals I have since I was about 20. And this is just so gorgeous, and it's a heart shape as well, which I think is, feels really, really special. I've got lots of family pictures around. I love to surround myself with plants and great art. Another piece actually that is really special to me actually is my previous career as a PR. I was lucky enough to go to Rome for Valentino's 45th anniversary celebrations, and this is a very chic fan that I brought back, and so that lives on my desk, reminds me of my old life. This particular cushion fabric I'm obsessed with. It's a How fabric, now discontinued. I managed to find a very small amount on eBay that I quickly snapped up and had my wonderful upholsterer make as a cushion. So I think that just works really, really perfectly in here. This is kind of the pièce de la résistance. This piece is 18th century Indonesian cabinet. I think when I found it online, I hadn't appreciated the scale, but I'm so happy that it is as big as it actually is. When it arrived, it took 4 people to bring it into the house, but it was well worth it. And I think it's just absolutely exquisite. I love the colours, I love the details, the etchings, and I just feel like with anything, kind of the more patina, the more sort of distressed and, lived in, the more it feels like it's kind of, it's kind of speaking to you. Its history is really, very obvious. This is a lovely piece from Africa, and again, little rattan wicker trim there, which I just think is so beautiful, and it's a very solid wood base. These came from Compton Marbling, which is, I believe they are based in Wiltshire, and they create the most lovely hand marbled papers, and they fashion them into these little light lampshades for these sweet little antique lights, light bases. So these are French, and I just, again, it's that little sort of lattice detail I'm obsessed with. I think they're so pretty. So then just surrounding myself in here with lots of great art pieces. The prints, the botanical prints, are Redoute, which is just a constant source of inspiration to me. This is an unknown artist to me, but I just think it's just so exquisite, and I think they must be lilacs. It's so pretty. I love the colours. That was actually one of the first pieces I got for this room, and so kind of built the scheme very much around that piece. And then again, I just really like to mix pieces. So we've got obviously some botanical art, some abstract art, and then lots of ceramics around. I've collected blue and white china for years, and I've probably had to kind of pare back my blue and white obsession a little bit, particularly since building a home with my husband, but you definitely will still see touches throughout where I can get away with it. These are very old antique botanical prints. Again, I'm obsessed with ferns. I love to have ferns and geraniums, and those are kind of my go-to for indoor life. And they've just been sweetly framed in a little bamboo frame. This is a vintage Victorian lamp base. Again, it's really pretty. And this piece actually is very special to me because my grandfather actually, he was incredibly gifted. He hand carved all of the details, and you can see it's all little flowers. And it's just really, that's where I keep all my note cards. I love to letter write. I'm very old fashioned like that. I think everyone is always happy to receive something that's not a bill in the post, let's face it. So I do like to put pen to paper. Some of the other things that I have that are special, I'm half Welsh, so I love spoon. I've got them dotted around the house, but I love to always have one on my desk. And this is a really sweet, this was a gift from a close friend of mine, which I love. So this is the other side of the office space, which is, again, where a lot of our guests do come through, especially if they've parked up in our driveway. I love this piece. This is a antique etagere, but I love the way it has a little inlaid detail of the shell. Again, it's a little bit of a nod to the sea. This mirror is Indian antique, and I think it's just absolutely gorgeous. I love the distress paint effect, and this is a piece that I brought back from Greece. I love evil eyes. I wear evil eyes, so it's all about protection. Another piece of art from Ariel Shavara Avila. I feel like every home needs to have a pineapple. It's the sign of welcome, and so for me that kind of is just the nod there. This umbrella stand again is another piece that we brought back from Austria with us, and again it just feels like it just works really nicely in this cute little entrance hallway. And we've got 2 pendant lights in here, which I think when I was designing the room, I did really kind of labour on lighting for this room, because I do love to have lots of lamps as throughout the house, but it was important to get the pendants right. But what I think I particularly loved about these is just that sort of, they very much are, they're neutral. They feel like they kind of always hung here. And I think they're just really chic, and you kind of could miss them, but if you spot them, I think people tend to comment that they really do like them. So they're from Jim Lawrence, and he's kind of the go-to for quite a lot of the lighting that I use throughout my projects. So here we are in our garden, which is actually the perfect size for us because it's high maintenance but not high maintenance, if you know what I mean. We have a great gardener. The previous owners were incredibly green thumbed and just are responsible actually for planting everything in all its glory. So we're really lucky here, and the roses are just coming out now to have such a beautiful display of David Austin roses, which are just exquisite, and they continue to sing throughout the summer and just bring us so much joy and delight. And in another week's time, it'll just be a cacophony of colour. So we absolutely feel very blessed to live in a home that has such a gorgeous garden. We love to entertain. I think we probably do more entertaining in the summer than we do in the winter. And just because we like to be outside, my husband loves to barbecue. We can have 10, 12 people around the table. And so, yeah, we're already planning our summer series. For me, I think the sort of a successful home scheme is a sort of taking a 80-20 approach. So kind of 80% vintage, antiques, and 20% new. So that's kind of always my base starting point. I love to decorate with colour. I'm all about, joyful living, and, your home should obviously be a reflection of your personality. In this case, our personalities. I love to use pattern and textures, and I think it's really about creating a feeling rather than a look overall. I'm not about kind of being too matchy. I think that you should take risks, and I'm constantly moving things around. So, a painting that might, live in one room might not in 6 months' time, or an object. And I think we should kind of take the view that your home is actually like a bit of a set, and there's no kind of right or wrong way to place anything, and it's just kind of being led by your instincts. I love a place to feel really collected and obviously curated, to feel layered. I mean, warm and cozy is what we're all striving for, and you should ultimately be able to kick back and feel super relaxed in your home. So now I'm going to take you to the upstairs of the property. So we hung this piece quite recently. This was also painted by my late mother-in-law, Nadine Finnegan, and I just love the colours. I think it's just a vibrant mix of greens and blues, and I'm not traditionally a pink girl, but I just love how Wendy has brought some of those kind of more those colours out of my comfort zone into that palette. And so yeah, I'm so happy with this piece. Every time I climb the stairs, I take her in, and I think you can really kind of enjoy the majesty of this painting in its position. This bench is a Hungarian antique. I think it's really very sweet how it just sits quite unassuming, really, under this lovely painting. This is a really fun light lamp base from Pookie, and this wicker lampshade came from Calico, which I've had for a long time, and it's sort of kind of sat on various lamp bases in its life. This is a antique mirror, which I love because I particularly love this kind of inset canvas element, which it's really hard to find anyone to do that anymore. So for me, that kind of gives me Palm Beach vibes, which I just adore. This is a vintage Hermes scarf, which I had framed several years ago. So it's a piece that kind of came from my former life into this home. But I love the sort of foliage and the black breeze, and I think it really kind of screams autumn. And it's another season which I adore. And so that really feels like it has found its perfect place on the wall there. This fabric is from Linwood. And again, it's a nod to my stripe obsession. I feel like the greens just look really elegant though in that particular window, particularly because it looks over the garden. So this is one of our guest rooms, kind of more blue themed, but I just absolutely love this particular piece on the wall. This is a lithograph that my parents-in-law brought back from Paris. So we've recently had it reframed, and I just think it just looks incredible above the headboard. This actually was the bed that we had when we lived in London. And again, I love just the sort of clean lines of the cane headboard. And so we've, brought that with us and kind of given it a new lease of life in the guest room. We have created some lovely cushions here for this particular guest suite. So this is a Sanderson fabric, and we've popped a little blue trim on it. And this is a really lovely embroidered fabric from Pierre Frey. So I think that just looks really, really elegant together. This is a linwood fabric that I had created, that I had the quilt created with, and we also did a matching Roman blind just to kind of bring that into the window as well. So of course, as I've said already, can never resist a stripe. This is an Ian Mankin stripe for the ottoman at the end of the bed, and the kilim has come from India, and I just love the colours in this particular kilim. So this kilim was probably one of the last pieces actually that we installed in this room, and I think I probably drew a lot of inspiration from a lot of what was hanging on the walls, but I think it looks really, really beautiful and kind of just breaks up some of the other patterns in the room. So some of the artwork that we have in this corner, this is a lithograph by the French artist Hilaire, and I just love the playfulness of the circus ladies. I think it's just so fun. It's a piece that I bought about 10 years ago from a great shop, a gallery in London, King's Court Galleries in Fulham. And she's travelled with us, and I think looks great here. This little rattan chest has come from Stone Table Vintage. Victoria is the owner of that business, and she's got a really successful Instagram store and has such a great eye. So that's a piece that I love from there. We had this lampshade made with a Nina Campbell fabric. Again, it just kind of brings a sort of element of green and botanical into this space, and I think it looks really lovely with this piece of art hung next to it. This chair, again, is kind of very much kind of two of my loves, cane and faux bamboo. This cushion is from Les Ottomans, and then we've just got some sort of mix of art around. Again, the sea is never too far, or nor are the mountains. This particular table is a piece that I bought from eBay, actually. I think a lady had it in her garden, and I thought it would be absolutely stunning as a little side table for this particular room. So I'm really pleased with how that has turned out. Behind the side tables, we've got these lovely bamboo mirrors, and these are actually antique bamboo frames, and I just had them reset with an antique glass. I think they look really impactful, but when I first received those, they had very, very old silk, very sort of brown silk prints within them. So I feel like it's nice to give things a new life if you can, and working with great people like a great framer or a great upholsterer. There's always kind of endless possibility to what you can do with these pieces. I love these lampshades. They're from Birdie Fortescue. She's really clever. She we do use quite a few of her pieces throughout the property. And I think, you know, again, it's just a very lovely shade of blue. It just feels like it's quite soft, it's quite serene, and quite calming, actually. I think this room, as much as there's like a lot of art talking to you, it still feels like a place that you can just take a deep breath and hopefully relax in. So this is our other guest room. Again, we've kind of gone big on art, a lot of textiles, an injection of colour. This feels, you know, same but different. I guess more green coming through. And this kilim, just, I love the sort of checkerboard effect of it. This is a stunning Cantha quilt from Chloe Jonathan. She's an absolute resource for Canthas, and she's very, very. She has an incredible eye and has really has beautiful things. So yeah, I think that works really nicely on this guest bed. It really kind of anchors the bed. This cushion is in a Schumacher fabric, which is like a paisley. This particular fabric we used for the headboard is from Linwood. And again, I've carried that over to the Roman blind. The side tables are French antique, and I love the rattan tops mixed with the metal basis. I think they're really smart. The lampshades are from Pookie, and they again I think are a collaboration between JPG Baker and Pookie. This particular piece was gifted to us from my mother. This particular bridge is a bridge that I drove over a lot as a child to visit my grandparents in Wales, and so it really feels quite close to my heart. So I love architectural drawings. I love technical drawings. It's not something I'm particularly good at, but I really admire when someone is. So I love that particular piece, and of course it has lots of childhood memories for me as well. So we've got a mix of art here. Again, a nod to the sea, the country, lovely botanical prints, and then a little bit more sort of abstract on this side. A bit of a mix of pieces. But all hopefully working well together. And this is kind of our gallery wall area. And I think people, when they stay in this room, really love waking up to the art. And actually it's quite often the case that over breakfast they'll really question us over the art. And yeah, I think it's a great way of starting conversation. And it's a lovely room. It's a cozy room. It's the smallest room in the house, but it's definitely a great guest room. So we're in the master bedroom. This particular mirror is something that I acquired in my mid-20s. It was kind of my first big furniture purchase. For me, it's a piece of art. It's Philippe Starck. It's absolutely magnificent. I love the scale. I think it just absolutely belongs in that section of the room. It's travelled with us a lot, and much to the sort of, you know, annoyance of many a removal van. But everyone's always been very gracious and delivered it with a lot of care and attention, but I'm glad it arrived here, and I just think it just looks amazing. This painting just really reminds me of our barn, actually. I feel like this is probably how it would have been before it became residential. It was a cowshed, so I just feel like that painting kind of feels like it was almost meant to be for this property. So I was really pleased when I found it on an auction site and I had it reframed. And I feel like this particular frame just kind of really picks up the beams that you can see around the place. I bought this painting for my husband as a gift. I think I've mentioned that we've got a place in Austria, and this feels like it could have been painted in the hamlet where we live there, which is incredible. It was painted in the 50s by an artist called Vogel, and we just love it. We look at it and it reminds us of our really happy times in Austria. And coming through to the main bedroom area, this is a French antique chest, which I absolutely adore. I love all of the details. I love the original hardware. I think it's just so special. And again, my obsession for blue and white, which has been slightly reined in these days. This is just a lovely example of a ginger jar. Another French antique. This is I love the shell motif on the actual mirror. We have another French antique chair here, which I think is wonderful with the cane. And this table actually is a martini table, which I was told by the antique seller that it came from the estate of the late Yves Saint Laurent from his Paris home. So I'm quite excited to think of the stories that table could tell if it could speak. This particular lamp is, again, one of the sort of earlier antique purchases I made, which I think is just exquisite. I love it. I love the detail. I guess I really do have an appreciation for French antiques and that era, it really speaks to me. This is again another bamboo piece. It's got like a beautiful, almost like a textural paper inserts within it, and it actually is kind of near on in perfect condition. So we absolutely love that piece. Really adore it. This is another lampshade I had made in a sewn fabric, which I think is wonderful, and it's actually been designed to mimic basket weave, which again is my nod to wicker. We inherited this lamp base from my parents, which I think just looks absolutely beautiful in here. My very dear girlfriend created this frame for us actually. It's an Anya Hindmarsh custom frame when we moved into our barn, so she created it for us, which is lovely, and something I really treasure. I love, again, ceramics, and this piece is by Fee Greening, and again it's a little nod to coral and the sea, and this dish is from Hermes, so it's a little vintage piece that I just use to store jewellery, etc. We've got some more art pieces here, again just a real mix of artists, unknown artists. I've had most of these pieces reframed, just because I think that so much of the beauty can really be drawn out with the right frame. This is a British artist called Noah Kelsey, who's kind of newer to me, but I just love his abstract pieces, so that's more of a recent acquisition. I believe this is an American artist, and that was a piece I bought when I lived in London, and it kind of was very much kind of the vision board for moving to the country. I used to stare at it and dream of living in amongst those surroundings, which I feel like we actually do now here. This actually was gifted to us. This is actually Putney Bridge, in London, which is sort of the bridge that joins Putney to Fulham, which then leads to Chelsea. And this part of the river is actually such a part of my childhood. This particular piece was gifted to my parents, and they gifted it to us. And it's something that we really treasure, particularly because of its, I think, the story behind it. My parents took that to Beirut with them, and it was hung there for years in their place before they came back to London. So it's done its fair share of travelling. This painting I just adore. It's a scene from the south of France. I just think it's truly exquisite the way it's been painted. And I really, really love that piece. It's nice to be surrounded by the sea and the mountains and all of the sort of art that we have around us. We've gone, for very simple kind of bedside setup here. You'll see another nod to elephants. So we've got a really cute little ceramic elephant sitting over there in the corner. He's guarding my side of the bed. This fabric I love. It's a collaboration that Kit Kemp did with GPJ Baker. I think it's wonderful. The colours really richly textured. And just, I think Kit Kemp is a genius at colour mixing. She's kind of what we aspire to be, I think, as designers. This quilt is from Beata Homan, and I love everything she does. I think it's truly exquisite. The quality is just always second to none. This chair I acquired from an antiques shop in Lily Road in London, and I had it recently reupholstered in a Colfax check, which I think works really beautifully with a Samuel & Sons braided trim. And this fabric, I believe, is probably a discontinued pattern now from Sanderson, but I think it works really nicely. And actually, if you just see behind here, there's a beautiful wooden motif detail actually on the chair, which is just dreamy. And it's the level of detail, I think, on the antique pieces that just always really speaks to me. What makes a house a home? I think for us, it has to be our dogs. They are the sort of beating hearts. So they are kind of first and foremost, these little creatures make our house a home. But ultimately, it's a feeling of being able to make happy memories. It's a place where, you kind of go through a lot of life stages. And so you want to make sure, I guess, that your home is always your sanctuary. And so I think, people, animals, and obviously all, being surrounded by everything you love in terms of your possessions. I guess that's what makes a house a home.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.